Hello and welcome to etbfsi.com. The world of fintech is evolving and changing rapidly, and we at Fintech Diary try to map these changes for you. My name is Amol Dethe, and my guest for Fintech Diary chapter today is Ritesh Pai from Terra Pay. Ritesh, glad to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let me first understand the dashboard of Terra Pay. What is Terra Pay? What is Terra Pay actually doing? How are you actually innovating in a fintech space, Ritesh?
So, we are primarily a B2B company. We have created an infrastructure where we marry the send corridors with the receive corridors.
Right.
So just to sum it up, it's like, we facilitate cross-border remittances,
Right.
where, we have entities or partners on one side who actually originate transactions from the send countries.
Right.
And we help them fulfill those transactions into a destination of a beneficiary account in a receive country.
Absolutely.
So the way we have created the infrastructure, it's a complete API driven. So any partner who comes and does one handshake with us gets an access to the entire ecosystem of 212 send countries and 121 receive countries that we have already enabled, right? In addition to that, it's not only about the tech piece. We are quite aware that technology can only help solve a problem up to a certain extent. But when we talk of money movement, right, at a very broad level, it just looks like a funds transfer.
Absolutely.
But when you look at a cross-border, there are actually two regional or two geographies that are involved, which means there are two clearing systems involved.
Absolutely.
The money has to move from one country to another, and that all has to be seamless. So your forex rates, your treasury, your liquidity management plays an equally important role, right? And now when you have to operate in various jurisdictions, you also need to have the necessary regulatory blessings. So we have stitched the offering in such a way that apart from the tech, TerraPay as an entity today is licensed or has the necessary regulatory approvals in 29 geographies. We have our own forex and liquidity management team, which means that we are able to settle transactions in almost 70 currencies.
Right.
And when I'm talking of 70 currencies, we are talking of real exotic currencies that exist, which many banks also don't deal into, right? Today, I can actually settle transactions in a Kenyan shilling or a Ghanaian cedi or a Zambian kwacha, those kind of currencies. Typically, if you go to a bank, top 18 to 19 currencies is what they do, depending on what their business requirements are. But we are actually gone beyond that. On top of that, we have our own, because we are a regulated and a licensed entity, we have a very robust screening mechanism. We have our own AML CFT policy. So it's an end-to-end solution that we provide to our partners, because of which today we are able to terminate transactions into almost 7.5 billion bank accounts world over and 2.1 billion wallets.
Right.
If you look at some of the other continents like Africa, etc., where the mobile wallets far outnumber the banks, right? Banking penetration is like almost in single digits over there. And then when you come to the matured markets like the Southeast Asia and the Europe, and where bank accounts are widely prevalent. So in short, we are like one size fits all solutions as far as the cross-border money movement is concerned. We are actually an alternative to the traditional methods that banks use, right? We all know like the historical systems that banks used has a high cost. The tech is not up to mark.
Yes.
Plus, the delays and the price points at which it happens. Today, I can proudly say that 97% of our transactions today get delivered inside a minute. Now, that's the kind of a wow that we are trying to bring. At the same time, not compromising on the security and the transparency that is linked to any transaction.
Okay. So average time is?
So average time, like I said, is less than 1 minute for
minute.
97% of the transactions that we process.
For all the countries, all the geographies?
Yes, on an average, if you look at it, mostly, unless we are talking of a specific country where there is no real-time settlement or where there is no, a very well-evolved domestic payment ecosystem. Right.
Okay.
There you typically tend to have, like in Europe also at times you tend to face an issue where if it's a non-Euro kind of a country where there could be a delay of 24 to 48 hours. By the time I get the confirmation, the processing still happens instant, but there could be some of the inherent the country specific behavioral issues that can affect.
Okay. So I remember listening to Mr. Ravi Menon, the chairman of Monetary Authority of Singapore, saying that cross-border payment is one of the biggest things that the fintechs needs to resolve, because still the transaction costs are very high.
Yeah.
So when the fintechs are actually getting into this space, Ritesh, I would like you to tell us whether the cost of transactions has gone down significantly, because the cost of cross-border transaction is still very high. May it remittance, may it even doing a normal transaction for a travel or ticket purchases abroad or something like that.
So there are multiple factors to it. Today, if I were to look at it more from a remittance point of view, if you see a lot many remittance transactions today happen in an assisted mode.
Okay.
Right? Which means there are still the brick and mortar outlets, some of the large money transfer operators also, if you see. So the moment you have a lot of manual intervention that comes in, that just adds to the overheads which come in, right? Ours is a completely API driven. So which means that we have the end-to-end flexibility, no manual intervention, instant gratification. Till the time you don't make these solutions very efficient, right? I mean, at the end of it, it will be 5 factors that it will boil down to. One is cost, second is speed, third is security, then your transparency and the liquidity management. As long as you continuously improve upon these aspects, right? You can always try and make the price points very efficient. You can make the experience very efficient. Mind you, a lot of these transactions, if you see, almost 68% of the transactions that happen on cross-border remittance are in the range of 300 to 350 USD.
Right.
Which means these are mostly going towards your family maintenances, which is very time critical, right? At times it is a very event-based kind of a thing, because when a person who is a migrant worker goes to a different geography in search of livelihood, he has to send that necessary amount of money back home for that family sustenance. So many a times they don't mind paying a higher fee as long as they get an assurance that the money is delivered. I mean, there are World Bank reports that also suggest that at times the cost of even remitting a 200 USD kind of a ticket size is as high as 6%, which is actually criminal in today's day and age, right? But when we bring in our solutions where we can stitch everything end to end and provide that necessary liquidity management. See, a lot of this business runs on a prepaid model. So even the beneficiary bank will need to see the funds first before they go ahead and credit the beneficiary, right? So how do you efficiently manage that? And that's why I said it's not only a tech related game, but a forex and liquidity management related aspect also, which can help bring efficiencies. So today we have algorithms, we have our forecasting tools in place where I know that on a daily basis, what is it that I need to send from US to Kenya, UK to Tanzania, UK to India, those corridors. I can manage it very efficiently. That's why when we talk of doing settlement in 70 currencies, I mean it's not a joke. I mean it's a science which happens over a period of time. So I think constant evaluation, innovation around this, and I guess even we are seeing a lot of domestic networks mushrooming now. That many countries have an ecosystem where one handshake with one bank and I can get access to terminating transactions, as opposed to maybe like a SWIFT kind of a thing, right? Where a bank will necessarily need to have a nostro arrangement with every correspondent bank, which is an overkill, right? To manage how many such accounts will you have. But here, because you're part of the domestic interoperable network, one handshake, one sponsor bank, or one direct connect with that network helps you terminate transactions into any bank account. So those are the efficiencies that we are seeing now.
How do you see the whole cross-border market picking up, specifically when fintechs are taking interest into it, and specifically after the the Singapore and India corridor kind of setup by the government itself, right? And the UPI and the Singapore app is actually trying to do the cross-border transactions. How do you see this opportunity for the fintechs in this space now?
See, I'll tell you what. Today, if you see, and I was just also talking as a part of my panel discussion today. I mean, for 2022, the overall remittance volume which was there was close to 800 billion, right? Almost 794 billion to be very precise. That is supposed to grow to almost 1227 billion by 2028, which is going at a CAGR of 6 to 8% year on year, right? 2028 or 2030, it will be that kind of a volume. You're getting a lot of young workforce into the ecosystem. I mean, if you look at an average age of Africa as a continent, it's anywhere between 20 or 22, right? Similarly, you see a lot of such things in Asia Pacific as well, where a lot of these countries are very young. Aspirational values are there. There are a lot of people who are moving out, as a migrant worker or an expat to work. And a lot of them will have to send money back home, either by way of investments, family maintenance, etc. That particular ecosystem or size is continuously going to grow. What is the need of the hour is how many of such transactions can be done in a self-service mode as compared to an assisted mode. Because now you have the mobile device penetration, you have a young population who is very tech savvy. What World Bank data suggests is that, I mean, this is slightly dated, as of 2021, 296 billion worth US dollar worth of transaction was happening in a self-service mode. That number is about to grow to 428 billion, right, by 2025, which means a whopping 45% jump. That will also address the efficiency part of it, because what I can do sitting at the comfort of my home, naturally I'm eliminating all the the overheads that come in. That size from, say, at the end of 2030, $1,227 billion will further grow as you have more population going across. Today, and one of the interesting data points that I said is the migrant population or the expats today put together is a population size of almost 300 million, which in a country term turns out to be the fourth largest country in the world after India, China and US, right? So now you look at it, and now if you were to look at the merchant payments, or if I were to use a better term like business payments, that potential is tipped to be almost $42 trillion. So now business transactions, which are very, very chunkier ticket size, business payouts, you have a lot of these, social media, e-commerce transactions, etc., which is happening, right? Where there is very volume-driven transactions, could be small ticket size, but repetitive payments that happen. All of these add up, and that's where the market potential comes in. And with a payment, our homegrown payment ecosystem like a UPI, which is now going to be used cross-border, right? Now look at a scenario where other apps can be then used on UPI QR in India. Now you're talking of a proper cross-pollination of actual cross-border transactions. And I'm always a firm believer that merchant payments actually define an ecosystem rather than more of a P2P. Because in a P2P, I always had many other options of sending a money to an individual. But a merchant payment becomes very ubiquitous. I can pay to any merchant without having the fear of he not accepting it. That actually broadens the overall horizon of how cross-border payments and remittance can take place.
Okay. That was quite meaningful, Ritesh. So let me shoot one more question, and my last question is specifically about how do you see the India market? Now you're operating from Dubai, you worked here for a long time, and now you're a foreigner in a way. So how do you see the Indian fintechs? Many of them started with the payment, now getting everyone into the credit. Obviously, they're slightly looking at cross-border payments as well. But how do you see the Indian market, and what kind of opportunities do you see for Indian fintechs maybe operating in Dubai or different countries?
See, I mean, the opportunity always exists, right? I mean, I'm a firm believer that the room for improvement has a lot of space. It's up to us how much we go ahead and occupy it, right? My only advice has always been to the fintechs is identify the pain point, right? Identify the right use case. Okay, don't run after the glamour part of it, but look at the actual use case which will help move the needle, make a difference. I'm telling you, if you're talking of a $1,200 billion kind of an ecosystem only on P2P cross-border remittances, right? I mean, there's enough play for everyone. All said and done, today cash is still the competition, right? And there is scope. Like I said, efficiency on those 5 points, you can go on improving. There is no limit to it, right? I remember when we were talking to some of our clients, for them, instant payment was something that gets delivered inside 48 hours. That was their promise to their customers. Today, we are looking at things getting delivered inside a minute. So many a times when my partner's customer who is on their website or on the mobile app, before he actually exits the session, he gets a confirmation that the beneficiary has received the money.
Yes.
This is all about trust. Money management is all about trust, right? Once a person gets used to that okay, once I use this option, go to this particular app, this transaction gets done, my beneficiary gets an instant confirmation, and the beneficiary also validates that I have received money. That's a wow. Now that is faith. He is not going to change it unless the entire experience gets screwed up. So I think when you design a solution, when you look at an end stage where it becomes absolute near perfection, I think that is where you can cream the market. And then it's all about extrapolating it, right? A P2P can then be extrapolated to a P2M. A P2M can then be extrapolated to a B2B. It can be extrapolated to a B2C. At the end of it, it's a funds transfer.
Yes.
But how do I orchestrate it? How do I manage liquidity? It's not only the tech part, right? There are many more nuances to it. And cross-border payments especially is very, very sensitive. I mean, the regulators also, have all the warnings, early warnings that come up, because now you're talking of money moving from here.
Yeah.
You have a lot of black ships that can contaminate the ecosystem. So, the AML, CFT, money laundering, all of those aspects also have to be factored. So you can't go with a very myopic view that I will come up with the best tech.
True.
Tech has to be supported with respect for the regulations and also the other inherent aspects around the customer service and the instant gratification that will build faith in that particular model.
Sure. Absolutely, Ritesh. That was really meaningful. Thanks for sharing those thoughts with us, and thank you for being part of Fintech Diary.
Thank you, Amal. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for watching Fintech Diary on etpfsi.com. Thank you.